In this video, we're going to be talking about the what, when, who, and how of Jewish religious fasting, and the how portion of the video is going to be all the tips and tricks that I've learned for having an easier fast. This is something that I struggled with for a long time. To say I didn't look forward to fasting was an understatement. It was very challenging. And one thing I want to point out at the beginning is when most people think of fasting, they think of not eating, but the difference between Jewish religious fasting and what most people think of as typical fasting is we do not eat and we do not drink. So there's no intake whatsoever. We're not eating, we're not drinking, there's no food and no liquids. So that's something I just wanted to point out. It's maybe something that people didn't know. So yeah. It is challenging, but over the last couple of years, as I've been keeping these fast days, I have come up with some strategies and some tips to make it easier, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today in this video. So, what is Jewish religious fasting? So these are fast days where we abstain from all food and drink. I'm just looking at my notes here. And you have two different lengths of fast days. So some are longer and some are shorter. The longer ones are typically about 25 hours. It's where you go from the beginning of the Jewish day, which our Jewish day begins at night. And so you go from the previous evening to the following evening. So it's a full 24, 25-hour period. The shorter ones begin in the early morning. So for example, this year we just had the fast of the 17th of Tammuz, and it started at 3:21 in the morning, and it goes till 9:30-ish. So those are the two different lengths. You have the ones that are the full, like Shabbat, 25 hours, and then you have the shorter ones, which are around 18 hours. When do these happen? So we have fast days several times a year. The most well-known would be Yom Kippur, and then after that would be Tisha B'Av. But we also have other ones sprinkled throughout the year. You have the fast of Esther right before Purim. You have the one that we just had, which is Tammuz 17, which marks the beginning of the 3 weeks. It's a 3-week period. It begins with a fast day. We have 3 weeks of some mourning customs, but then we have a full long fast at the end of the 3 weeks, which is called Tisha B'Av. And there's additional mourning restrictions that are observed on that day. If you guys want more details, I'm gonna put some links in the description box below where you can go and read up more on these topics. I'm not an expert on the halacha or what exactly, the laws surrounding these fast days and these mourning customs. I just wanna give you an overview and then some more practical tips of what I do. So moving on to the who keeps these fasts. So these are public fast days, which means everyone is obligated. You do have a few exceptions, being pregnant and nursing women, women within 2 years of having a baby, and children. So children that are before their bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. That would be girls under the age of 12 and boys under the age of 13. So children do not have to fast. The other exception is if you have some sort of a medical condition where you need to eat and drink, then that's something that you should take up with your doctor and your rabbi. For me, even though I was nursing or pregnant, often I would keep the fast depending on how I was feeling. For me, I would sometimes choose to do the fast anyways. I may not keep it right to the very end, but I would go maybe half a day, for example, or something like this, or I might just drink something without eating, so I would kind of modify it, but I would still try and do something for it to commemorate the day. So, okay, so we've covered the what, when, and who, and that brings me to the how. So here's where I just want to share with you some practical tips for things you can do before the fast, during the fast, and after the fast that will hopefully help you. These are things that I have learned over the years that are helpful to me. It's not necessarily going to make the fast easy, but for me it has definitely made it easier. So I hope I can do the same thing for you. And I have 6 tips for you. Tip number 1 is to plan and prep for your pre and post fast meals. So with the exception of Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur is like Shabbat, you are not allowed to drive or cook. The other fast days do not have this kind of restriction. So technically you are allowed to cook, but a grocery store is the last place that you want to be on a fast day. For the same reasons that you wouldn't want to go shopping when you're hungry. So what I like to do is plan the meals that we're going to be eating before the fast and also after the fast. And I will cook those ahead of time, or maybe do a crock pot meal for the post-fast meal, just so I'm not having to go to the grocery store. I'm not having to do a lot of cooking or stand in the kitchen for hours preparing those meals. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is related to that. It's make food ahead of time for your children. So I have 4 kids, and it's the same idea. I don't want to be in the kitchen cooking much on a fast day. It's not, I would rather be reading a book or playing with my kids or something like that. So I like to make food ahead of time, or at least have easy food that my kids can make for themselves. My oldest daughter is 6 and she's very independent. She will take the initiative and just make food for herself and the other kids, which is great. So tip number 3 is also to do with food, and this is to eat properly and drink properly the day before. By properly, I mean pay attention to your macronutrients. So for me, my eating style is, I don't even know how you describe it. I don't eat a lot of meat. I'm mostly plant-based, but I do eat fish. I do eat eggs. I kind of like to describe it as a keto-tarian. So I'm lower on the carbs, but I do eat whole grains fairly regularly. So I'm not keto. It's not that severe. But you want to be paying attention to your fat intake. And what I mean by that is make sure you're getting enough. You want to go heavy on the fat in your meal before the fast, because that is going to keep you feeling full longer. But it's very important what kind of fat you're eating. So there's lots of videos out there about healthy fats versus not healthy fats. For me, I like to focus on fish and nuts and avocado, and I try to eat at least 2, if not all 3 of those in my pre-fast meal. And for my liquid intake, I like to drink at least 1 liter of water, and I add a little bit of salt to the water just to help my body retain that water. Me personally, I do not believe salt is a problem. I don't have a problem with high blood pressure or anything like that, and I drink that throughout the day. The salt is going to help my body retain water over the next day. This is really, really important, because if you just have a big meal of like pizza or fries or hamburgers even, you're not getting the water content for one thing. You're also not getting the fiber. And those things are what's really going to help you feel full, or at least not hungry over the fast. So you really want to be paying attention to what you're eating before the fast. That, I can't overstate that enough. That's really key to having energy and not having like a headache and just laying on the couch the entire time. Tip number 4 is going to be for the parents out there. So if you have children, they still got to be supervised and looked after and entertained. So what I find helpful is if you can take turns with a spouse, so one of you can rest and relax or take a nap. That can just help you get a break, and you can switch back and forth like that. And that's something that I find helpful. And related to that is tip number 5 is to plan activities for your kids. So this can be as simple as like just going for a walk, going to the park, something that's not gonna be really exhausting for you to participate as well. But if you can arrange to go to a friend's house maybe, or for a play date, something like that, that's great. Or if you are a person that rotates through toys, you can give your child a new toy, or at least like new to them, one that they haven't played with in a while. You can give them that on this day, and that will help to keep them occupied and give you just a little bit of an easier time with the children. So for example, what we did with our children to keep them busy over the most recent fast that we just had, the Tammuz 17, we have a pool in the backyard. It's just like a small inflatable pool, but our kids love it. It's out in the garden. They just love to play there, and they will play there for hours. So that's something that they like to do, and we like to do because it's very, I mean, we just have to sit there and watch them basically. So that's a very fun activity that children enjoy, and I enjoy as someone who's fasting. I don't have to run around after them. It's just sitting and supervising. So here's the book that I'm reading, Man's Search for Meaning. I'm actually rereading this. I bought the book for myself a long time ago, and I read it every so often. It's very inspiring. It's like you read about what they went through, how they didn't eat for days and days. You're like, I can do this. One day, I definitely can do this. And tip number 6 is to actually stay busy. Typically on a fast day, I just do my regular routines and things like that, things around the house that need to get done. With the exception of Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av, which are actually, there is some restrictions involved with doing housework and stuff like that. You would not obviously do those on Yom Kippur especially, but also Tisha B'Av, there is mourning customs that we follow. So you do have a slightly different routine on that day. But for the most part, the other fasts that are shorter, you can do basically whatever you want. And a bonus tip for all you coffee drinkers out there, like myself, I was never like a heavy coffee drinker, but I was up to 2 cups a day, and I decided before the fast that I was going to go off caffeine. So I stopped drinking coffee, and I think it really helped with the fast. The fast that we just had was amazing. It was so, I'm not gonna say it's easy. It's not easy, but it was not hard. And by the end of the fast, I felt like I could go longer. I was like, I'm just gonna go to sleep and I'll eat tomorrow morning. I didn't end up doing that. We did sit down and have a meal together, my husband and I, but I felt really good. So I think that really helped me. Was if you're gonna go through caffeine withdrawal, you don't want to do it on a fast day, because that's just gonna compound those feelings of lethargy and just feeling not good. So that's it for my tips, guys. I hope you found this video helpful, and let me know in the comments below if you implemented any of these tips, which one you found the most helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Oh, and the reason I didn't put any music on this video is because we are now in the 3 weeks, like I mentioned, and one of the mourning customs that we observe is not listening to music. So in observance of those customs, I decided to not have any music on this video, just in case any of my viewers are Orthodox and want to avoid listening to music over this period of time. So